Now we're going to have our Q&A session, so I'll invite our other speakers to come and sit alongside Emilie. Yes, for people online, don't forget, you can also ask questions. Just drop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen.
Ça va aller. Merci.
Right, so now for questions. Oh yes, Alexis over there.
Thank you all. I have a question for Emilie.
Yeah.
You mentioned at the end that it's mostly recycled paper.
Yeah.
Recycled material.
Yeah.
Is there does a comparison exist with material in other scripts from Dunhuang or elsewhere to see whether the percentage is similar or not? And do you have any hypothesis on the fact that there might be more recycled paper there than elsewhere?
More than elsewhere, it's quite difficult. Maybe it will mean a bigger study, and basically we are lacking reference material for Central Asia. So firstly, we have to analyze very much more paper from Central Asia to compare maybe with China or Japan or West to have a real idea of what is the difference or what is similar, and to have an idea also if they recycle more material in Central Asia than in other countries. For the moment, we are lacking. It won't be relevant, I mean, with so many information.
There's a question over there. Yep.
Hi, my question is also about the paper. I'm sure that you must know about Agnieszka's research, paper analysis research, because Agnieszka and I, we both attended 2007 IDP conference. I really remember her research. And in 2013, when I contacted her for another conference, her research is not only just include the stand documents, paper analysis in the British Library. She started to move to research the Dunhuang documents in Germany. And I can see your paper analysis is mainly based on Sanskrit document. Then have you compare those paper making material and the technique with the Dunhuang document written in other language? For instance, like the Diamond Sutra, the paper quality is really, really high. I remember when I talked to Mr. Huang, who conserved Diamond Sutra, he did mention the paper is with very high quality of paper making. Thank you.
Welcome. So thank you for your question. Firstly, yes, I know very well Agnieszka because she was the co-director of my thesis. So I've been working with her for 4 years. And the thing is that I've not heard about, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the person you mentioned. And mostly the project was to analyze the Kuchian document found at the, stored at the Paleo collection because it has never been achieved until now. First. Then, Dunhuang is, for me, not always easy to draw conclusion because Dunhuang documents, we don't know where the paper are from. I mean, you have plenty of languages, all in a bunch, put in a cave. So maybe was it copied here? Was the paper brought from somewhere? Or did the paper and the manuscript completely were given there? We don't know. So it's always a bit difficult to say, okay, what is it, and is it Dunhuang made or somewhere else? Then my third point is, he spoke of high quality paper. What does it mean? And here is the thing, you know. We have here recycled material that have remained buried into the ground for more than 1,000 years. And you see, no problem. So what I mean, of course, it was costly made. Of course, fiber distribution is very cloudy, and we see that they do not follow the stages properly. But basically, for me, it is high quality, because if I buy paper, any paper made nowadays, it won't last that long. So when he means high quality, does he mean the type of fiber? Does it mean the modern color? And the color is not always a good reference when you have material that has remained, you see it's molded, it is splitting everywhere. So of course, it's a normal degradation process to get white from white to yellow to brown, according to how it's been used, how it was preserved for centuries. So if you can define what he means by high quality, then it's easier for me to say if I agree or not.
Right. Are there questions for all the speakers as well? Yes? Perfect. Just that. Thank you.
Thank you all. I have questions about the dyes. And I was wondering how to confirm where the dyes come from. They are local or come from the other place on the Silk Road? Because maybe it's difficult to find out the origin place of the plant, the animals, even the minerals. Thank you so much.
Yes, it is not an easy thing to do in most cases. There are some dyes, though, that, especially with the yellows, because yellows come, for example, in a high variety of sources. They are also the ones that have been traded less, because you can find good yellow dyes locally pretty much everywhere. So, for example, I made the example of the yellow that from Uzbekistan, I called it, like, because it's really typically Central Asian, and the distribution of the plant doesn't go far into China. So I think in that case, it's a relatively strong argument that particular yellow dye source wasn't really imported. There was no advantage in importing it. But it's definitely a research line that should be coupled with looking at the documents. I don't know if there is evidence or accounts of the movement of material. So it's a little bit dye by dye. So I could talk about it for like half an hour, dye by dye. But in general terms, you are right. It's not an easy thing to do. Some dyes are a little easier than other, but by then a lot of dyes had been traveling, so it's not always a straightforward thing to say.
We've got another question.
Question for Colin for your presentation on the massive digitalization project.
Which one?
Sorry, and BNF. Yeah. So you mentioned it's a little bit practical. I apologize if you don't know the details. But I'm a researcher. I work on Tibetan and Chinese manuscripts. I'm interested in when I can access and how can I use those tools. So you said you are expecting maybe like by the latest December 2025 this year. And you also mentioned, like the result is going to be like openly accessible to the public. So my question is, like, what are you expecting as a result of this project? Is it going to be an open access tool that has been trained so that we can feed it our source manuscript, and then the tool can help us OCR the text, or this project is going to actually yield a digital database with OCR'd handwritten manuscripts that's going to be searchable?
So thank you for your question. They are both. So first, the text, the Paleo collection transcription will be integrated into Gallica, so the digital library from the BNF. So that's the first point. Maybe other texts could be integrated. The older collection could be also integrated into IDP in the near future. That's the first part. So the text will be published, and the tools we already released the first set of models. The problem is that it's a little bit right now it's a little bit like a F1 race car. It's like it can go very, it can do very amazing stuff, but you need to tune it very precisely. I already ran a couple of workshops to teach people how to apply the models on their own sources, and it requires a lot of knowledge of how images work, what is a binary image, how do you transform a color image into a binary image, what kind of resolution you need, or to segment your documents, the segmentation, so to detect the text line inside the documents. All these steps are very critical and also very sensitive to any parameters tuning and stuff like that. So in a near future, we would like to package everything into a turnkey software that everybody could use. But right now, we are not at right at this stage. We are still putting all the small pieces together. But we hope in the near future to be able to provide such a tool to the community. Yeah. Thank you.
We have an online question, I think. Sorry, I think that me.
We have an online question from Min Sun Huang for Diego. And congratulations of the amazing research. And he wanted to know the cross-reference and the colors cross-referenced and confirmed by scientific analysis and MBI in Chinese color. But can we use those color references to identify colors produced in the different cultures, such as European textiles, by only using MBI?
I mean, not the particular, the set of reference samples that I showed are Asian dyes. So for different parts of the world, the research should start by sourcing the dyes that would have been typically used and kind of then repeat the approach that I showed. So these database that I showed, it would work with Asian textiles in general, but if we are working on South American materials, it's a completely different source of local plants, and that's the challenge of the research field, something that I face every day doing this job in a place like the British Museum, where this is one project, but next day I'm working on South Pacific Island bar cloth, and it's you start from scratch with the local materials that are completely different. So the approach remains the same, but the reference samples would be different and need to be sourced from each geographical area of interest.
We have one question from
Sorry, I had a question about that, because I noticed that the people that work in material science, of course, the reference data is very important. But I was wondering, it seems to me that everybody is building their own data set with their own data. There is no sharing between different teams. There is not like an online data set that everybody could use. And
there is a little bit of work that was done some years ago. It was at Boston. So Professor Richard Lorsen and his research team, they created actually an accessible platform that the idea was to then people to keep building. So it's true that it didn't come to a completion, and you are right in saying that at the moment there is not a platform that is universally accessible. In this research field, publication is important. I was talking about it. So we tend to publish the results. When we publish the results and we present identification, we also publish the comparative material, so that the data is available through publication, but it's really up in my wish list to have it shared in an easier way. And the British Museum is working on open access data repository, and I think there is collaboration with the British Library as well. So hopefully in the next few years it will become something even better shared. But I would encourage everyone to contact me if they are working on this, and I'm more than happy to share everything all the time. And we do share it within the community as much as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a question here. Yep.
Thanks. Yes, a question for Colin Chinnery. The map interface that you showed, that was a sort of started with IDP and then transitioned into something else and then evolved into something else at the museum. And I remember when you started it, because I started at IDP a year or two after you. And I just wondered if it really just, if you use that any further in terms of overlaying the Stein maps onto a Google map or a world map, or if there's any sort of future plans to do something with that, because it's such a great idea.
Just in my presentation just now, I showed a few images of mapping languages, grouping languages geographically onto a map, and I did that by overlaying Innermost Asia map onto Google Earth. So, and it was a very laborious process of me finding it online and putting it onto Google Earth. It was actually just available on it was readily available online. It was already geo-positioned and as a layer on Google Earth, and I just downloaded it and just like put it onto Google Earth. However, I suspect that that map, the Innermost Asia and Serindia maps that are available online as a Google Earth layer, only became available because of our work at IDP, because we did all the work of actually geo-positioning and stretching the maps and making that available online. And if anyone downloaded that information, it would be downloaded together with the geo-positioning information. And they could use that, stitch them together and put it online. So those resources are available. And of course, if that becomes a tool that other scholars would like to use for archaeology or related to Central Asia, China, Dunhuang, that whole area, of course, that those resources are available. But I just did one project. I do a museum rather than I don't do Central Asian studies. I have a museum and we have rotating exhibitions, and that was just one exhibition. And we do other sound language exhibitions after that. So I don't have other more plans to do language-based projects using geopositioning. However, the resources for anyone out who's interested, the resources are available online to do that.
We've got 5 more minutes left, so there might be 1 or 2 questions. I don't know if anyone else. Oh, yeah, this way. Maybe.
Thank you very much for all you guys. Wonderful presentation. And I have a question for the Colin, for the sound project. We know that the ancient language is quite different from nowadays, and especially all of them are not speak nowadays. So like ancient Turkish languages, how could we dig back to the sound of the languages speaks? Because like we see in the exhibition, for the Chinese part, we use the Mandarin, but we know that in the medieval time, we don't speak Mandarin. Probably some dialogues also included. So I think it's a difficult problem to see. Yeah, and another question for another Colin.
Can we stick to one and then we'll let?
Oh, yes,
yeah,
yes.
thank
One
you.
Colin at a time, please. Yes, of course, it's a very good question. And scholarship is not in ancient languages and kind of replicating or how do you call it? So those ancient languages into sound now is not a precise science. It is, the latest educated guess, the most precise educated guess that we can do according to scholarship now. The great thing is that nobody can prove us wrong. Yeah, unless somebody finds a time machine, goes back in time, records, and says, "Hey, Colin, you're wrong." In Chinese language, there is it's called Guyin, and actually, there's lots of scholars working in that field, and there's a lot more fine tuning. So it's a lot more difficult for Tocharian, for example, and a lot more difficult for Old Turkic, which are no longer extant languages, and you've got a lot less to work on. But, however, working with Zhang Zhan, he was telling me about this. Of course, ancient languages that use mostly alphabets, are alphabetic, that are phonetic, and then coupled with knowledge of certain branches of languages in certain geographical regions, you've got a lot of information that will help you to approximate certain sounds of certain geographical regions and certain eras. It's not going to be precise, but it's a kind of general idea. And in Chinese, in ancient Chinese, of course, you've got a lot more to work on because you've got a lot of poetry and other things that gives you sonic cues. And the earlier you go back in time, for example, I was told that like pre-Warring States period, not pre-Warring States period, pre-Sui, so you go into the Nanbei, that era, behind that, then Chinese as a language, like Chinese as a language, was not set, so it was kind of messy. So a lot more difficult to approximate it then. And then you have a lot more cues and a lot more, let's say, uniformity in how Chinese was developed, and it's a whole scholarship field there that they can feed off each other in terms of information. But so it's not precise, but it gives you an idea.
If I can chip in just about the recordings, we have 2 recordings for that register of nuns. One is in Mandarin, and it was recorded by our colleague Han-Lin, sat there at the front. We made that conscious decision to have it in the gallery. We knew it was Mandarin, but it was really to bring the item to life and to just create an opportunity for visitors to engage with the content of the manuscripts. And we felt like it would be nice, especially for people who speak Mandarin, to have that. We do have the recording from Professor Zhang Zening, actually, in ancient Chinese, and we will make that available via our IDP website, so probably in a blog to come after the closing of the exhibition. Yeah. Have we got one last question? I think we've got 1 minute. Yes, Ranju.
Thank you. I really learned a lot from the presentations, and I feel that there's a very interesting tension between the research presented by Diego and that by Emilie. It is that according to Diego's study, that dyes for the textiles we found in Dunhuang might have come from like various regions further west or further east, showing the network along the Silk Roads. But Emilie told us that the paper making process might be quite local. I think this is a very interesting phenomenon, letting us know the multifaceted aspect of production in the region. I don't know if any of you would like to comment on this potential thing.
Yeah, I guess it's 2 different materials, of course. I guess textiles is something that travel with people probably in a relatively easy way. So I don't think any of you was like extremely surprised to see that these dyes actually represent different geographical areas. I don't know. I mean, paper seems something that maybe.
Yeah, I think, and also the thing is that there was a book written by Étienne de la Vessière last year, and he estimated the travel time from China to Kuchao around 6 months. So it means that for the Buddhist industry, and Xuanzeng said that there were almost 1,000 monasteries in Kuchao, the consumption of paper should have been huge. And so it was not possible to, with such a demand, to wait for months and months, hoping that they will make it in 6 months. If there's a storm or an attack or anything, no paper. So at least I think that they had to make it, to find a solution to make it local, and they were not able to have this smooth, thin, white Chinese paper, that could have been very expensive also. So they managed to do something to copy their way. But basically, there's a testimony of an Arabic writer from the 9th century, and he was around Samarkand, said that there was many castes, and they are very fancy people because they bought that very expensive white thin paper. So maybe that one was from China, and so it means also that it was very, very expensive. So they manage a cheaper way.
Maybe just one last thing. You showed a lot of recycling in the paper, and some was made from textiles. So maybe one day someone will be able to tell a bit more where those textiles that were used to create where they were recycled to create the paper were coming from. I don't know if from fiber analysis that we are there yet, or maybe it's an impossible task, but there is a connection. The paper would have been made locally, but maybe with textiles that would have come from somewhere else and reused. One thing that I didn't say about my research is that it also showcased the recycling of the textiles. A lot of the fragments that we analyzed were from banners and patchwork, so things that would have been used and reused. And even for monochrome textiles like pure yellow or pure red, we see 3 or even 4 different types of yellows or reds, like pure colors. So it might speak towards even a re-dyeing of a textile or a textile fragment to refresh the color. So it makes the whole scenario, the recycling aspect makes the whole scenario even more difficult to unpack sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our wonderful panelists.